Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen wassalatu wassalamu ala Rasulihil Kareem. I welcome all of you to the monthly forum of the World Council of Muslims for Interfaith Relations. I'm grateful to Dr. Akram Nadwi for graciously agreeing to share his knowledge and wisdom today with us. Dr. Akram Nadwi Sahib is a world-renowned Islamic scholar. He is Dean of the Cambridge Islamic College and an honorary visiting fellow at the Mark Field Institute of Higher Learning in Leicester, United Kingdom. We are very fortunate to have him today with us. I got introduced to him in 2016 when I was at University of Berkeley bookstore, and I saw a book, and the book was If the Oceans Were Ink, an Unlikely Friendship and a Journey to the Heart of the Quran. And this book is being
Join the meeting
by Carla Power, who is a very celebrated author in US and Europe. Carla writes for Time and also for Newsweek, New York Times, and Foreign Policy. So Carla spent about 3 years or more with Dr. Akram Nadwi studying Quran. And I would like to share from this wonderful book one paragraph in which she introduces Shaykh Akram Nadwi and what a scholar he was. Just 27 years old when we first met, he was already a rising star in the global network of traditional ulama or Muslim religious authorities. Though he was raised in an Urdu-speaking village in the Indian state of Uttar Pradesh, the Arabic he learned at a small town madrasa was so good that he had begun writing grammars of the language as a teenager. He went on to the prestigious Nadwatul Ulama, a seminary in Lucknow, India, where he later stayed to teach and write. His earliest specialty was Hadith, or the words and deeds of the Prophet Mohammad, peace be upon him, which form the basis of Islamic laws as well as guidelines for the daily life of devout Muslims. At Oxford, he would begin the work that would gain him fame far beyond madrasa circles. A 40-volume collection of biographies of the thousands of Muslim women scholars, a work that would re-illuminate Islam's lost history of women as religious authorities. So today's topic for Dr. Akram Nadwi is the Muslim women scholars of early Islam. And again, with a lot of thanks on behalf of WCMIR, I welcome Dr. Akram Nadwi, who would speak for about 50 minutes to an hour. And then there will be time for question and answer or some brief comment. And if you'd like to ask a question or make a short comment, please raise your hand or write your name in the chat box. Dr. Akram Nadwi, the floor is yours.
Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen, wassalatu wassalamu ala Rasulih Muhammad wa ala alihi wa ashabihi ajma'in amma ba'd. Fa'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. Bismillahir rahmanir rahim. Ya ayyuhan nasu ittaqu rabbakum alladhi khalaqakum min nafsin wahida wa khalaqa minha zawjaha wa batha minhuma rijalan kathiran wa nisaa. So, respected scholars, dear brothers and sisters, I am really pleased to share with you some of my findings in my research about the women's contribution in the field of hadith, in sciences of the hadith. Whenever I talk about this book, certainly everybody shocked to learn that as early as the beginning of Islam, women have been so active in teaching the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, and also giving fatwa and guiding the community and traveling and also writing. And most of these stories of the women and the information about them has been actually unknown even to great scholars. Recently, as you know, Shaykh Qardawi rahimahullah ta'ala has passed away. He's my teacher, and he knew that I'm working on this book. So I remember that in year 2010, he invited his students for some meetings. Just he wanted to see them and meet with them. So I was one of them. So I was there in his masjid, and he asked me to talk about the book. By that time, it was not complete. So I talked in Arabic language and shared some of the stories to the audience. So Shaykh Qardawi said to me that, he knew few women, but he never has been aware that, the women who have been made contribution in Islamic sciences, their number is so great and so big. And also the stories were so much, amazing for him. He says, first time he learning all these. So he asked me, when is your work going to be completed? So I said, I don't know, because it's still continuing. So he said, you must stop now. Otherwise, it's never going to complete. So I said, fine, I listen to you. So I stopped the work that time. And next day, I had a lecture in the University of Qatar. So I gave the talk, and I mentioned that now Shaykh Qardawi had asked me to stop the work here. So one of the professors stood up among the audience, and he said, this is also men's conspiracy against the women. So, and I could really see that, the information about the women keeps, to me, to my knowledge, keeps growing until now. There are so many more women. If I said to some people, if I have to add to my books, I can add nearly 2,000 more women. So my book already has got nearly 10,000 women. I can add 2,000 more women in the book. So this is a research, no doubt took a very long time, nearly 15 years. But I enjoyed the research and learned so much. And one thing I always remind the people that one of the important commands of Allah in the Quran is that you should thank. If somebody does a favor to you, you must thank. And Allah says in the Quran, when people thank, Allah increases the favor. So one thing we have to learn really, that how much favors women have done to our religion. It is not something small they have done. It is not something that we should forget. It is very huge favors women have done to our religion. They are the one who preserve the many important words of Islam. There are many important teachings of the Prophet ﷺ. They only have been transmitted to us through the women. One of the great experts of the hadith and the fiqh, his name is Imam Abu Abdullah al-Hakim al-Nasaburi, from the 5th century of Hijrah. He said Muslims depend on the women for 1/3 of the 1/4 of the knowledge of Sharia. 1/4 of the knowledge of Sharia, they only come from the women. Muslims depend. Rest 3/4, shared by men and women both. Because in every chapter of the hadith and the fiqh, there are people, men who narrate the information, transmit the knowledge from the Prophet ﷺ, and so women. But there's 1/4 of Islamic law that only comes from the women. If you study any religion, Judaism, Christianity, Hinduism, you never can find that in those religions, in their formative periods, women have played such an important role. Islam is the only religion when it was evolving, when it was emerging, when it was really its details were written down. That early period, Muslim women, they played a very, very important role from very early, criticizing the information, analyzing the information, putting them together, them, passing on them, memorizing them, all the time active with all the responsibilities that the Muslim women, those times they did not have any responsibilities. They used to marry, they used to have divorce, they used to have family problems, they had to raise the children, they had to travel, they have poverty, they have all sorts of the things. With all those problems, they managed to keep teaching. And the number of the women scholars in Islam actually is not less than the men. It is equal to the men. The only problem is that in Muslim societies, people are hesitant to mention women's name. That I have seen myself in 2003. I went for the Hajj, and wherever I go, I write my travelogue, details of my traveling. So I had friends from Oxford, men and women, traveling with me. So I wanted to write their names. So I asked my friends, give me the names of your wives and sisters who are in the Hajj, so I can mention their name. They said, no, you don't need to mention the names of the wives and sisters. Just mention so and his wife and sister. You don't need to mention the name. So you see, even now, really, people living in the UK, in Oxford, they are shy to mention their wives and sisters' name. So imagine in the past, really, how it has been. One of the great experts of the Hadith, Imam As-Sam'ani, Abu Sa'ad As-Sam'ani, his name is. He's from the 6th century of Hijrah, and 550 something after the death of the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. He has written many, many books. He's the expert of Shafi'i fiqh, expert of Hadith and history. He has written a book on the biographies of his teachers. In that one, he also has mentioned the biographies of his female teachers, 69 women. His teachers are how many? 69 women. So he mentions that he went to Marw, one of the cities in Central Asia, to study with a female teacher. And he said that her brother was my friend. So I asked the brother that I want to come and study with your teacher, your sister. So my brother said to me, come tomorrow. I came tomorrow. He said, no, come tomorrow. Every time I used to go, he used to make excuse. Then I realized really he does not want me to meet his sister. So then I learned from her through the correspondence, writing letters to her, and she's answering back. That how I got ijaza and learning from her. So imagine really that a society where many people are very keen to tell you the names of their women. It's very difficult for us to find out the details, biographical details of these women. So whatever we have found out, that itself actually is helpful to understand the number must be very, very high. And it is supported by a great work done in Central Asia in the 8th century of Hijrah, that basically like a 15th century of Christian era. So the author, he writes that the names of the women in my book, they are not so many. Though the women scholars in our area, the number is very big. And he mentioned that whenever a fatwa comes from any house, a fatwa is usually signed by the man of the house, his wife, his sisters, and other women. So one man and a few women signed the fatwa. That he says how many learned women are in our area. So this really, and I have seen that sometime, I mentioned one of the scholars, so you can understand how many women are there. One of the men is, he wrote a book, his name is Abdul Wahab Ibn Najjar. Ibn Najjar is a historian, died in the year 600 of Hijrah. 600 means 1200 of Christian era. So 600 or 1200, you can say 600 Hijrah. He wrote a book on the history of Baghdad. In his biography, all the historians, Imam Zahabi and other people, they write he had a big list of the teachers with whom he studied hadith and history, big number of people. Among them, 600 were men and 400 women. He has got 1,000 teachers, 600 are men and 400 women. And 40% of his teachers are female. As you know, it is not easy to have access to the women in their houses, in the families. People don't allow. If somebody has got 40% teachers, female teachers, it means really the women who are learned in the society, the number must be very high because access to the men is so easy. This you find in all the generation. In one of the Imam Bukhari, everybody knows, the most sound book of hadith is Sahih al-Bukhari. One of Imam Bukhari's teacher is Muslim ibn Ibrahim al-Farahidi, not the Muslim who wrote Sahih Muslim. This is another Muslim. Muslim ibn Ibrahim al-Farahidi from Basra, a teacher of Imam Bukhari. In his biography, people write the women with whom he studied in his city Basra, their number is 70. In one city, just Basra, in the second century of Hijrah, just less than 200 years after the death of the Prophet ﷺ, a scholar studied with nearly 70 women in one city. It's hadith, not everything. Do we have a city like that? Is there any city in the world now where you can study hadith with 70 women? So early, people, now women scholars are in every religion. But actually, the thing in the past, you don't have women scholars. In Christianity, you can have women nuns, but you can't have women scholars. Bukhari's teacher in one city of Basra, he has studied with 70 women, and then he mentioned their name. He narrates from them. Similarly, all the people in every generation you can find huge number. So that I'm trying to say to you that is basically the number of the learned men and learned women in the society used to be the same. But information did not come in the same equal way. Reason is because the women were hidden. They were not allowed to come, except unless you really are very strong, you have strong desire to study. Like one of the greatest scholars of hadith is Imam Zuhri. Many of people must be knowing his name. Imam Mohammad ibn Muslim ibn Shihab az-Zuhri. He died in the year 124 of Hijrah. The Prophet ﷺ passed away on the 11th of Hijrah, and he died, this man, 124, nearly 100 years after the Prophet ﷺ he died. Imam Zuhri. He's a Tabi'i. Tabi'i means somebody who studied with the Sahabi. Between him and the Prophet ﷺ, only one generation. Imam Zuhri. Imam Zuhri is a big man. In his generation, people say he is the most knowledgeable person of the hadith. He knows the hadith more than anybody else. He is a teacher of Imam Abu Hanifa, Imam Malik, Imam Sufyan Uyayna, all the big people in Islam of that generation, they studied with Imam Zuhri, the most knowledgeable person. Imam Zuhri is the man, he made every effort to study with everybody, learned, whether men or women. And he used to enter inside the houses. One of his students, Ibrahim Sa'd al-Zuhri, he said, I asked my father Sa'd al-Zuhri that you and Imam Zuhri, both are from the same family of Banu Zuhra. Both are Zuhri. Why is it? He said to him, Bima faqakum Zuhri. Why Ibn Shihab al-Zuhri, he excelled and he was much more ahead of you. What happened? Why he was so good? So he said, my father said to me, the reason is when Zuhri used to come to the classroom, he used to sit in the front of the teacher. And once the teacher has left, then Zuhri would discuss all those issues with everybody in the classroom, with all the men and then with all the women, old women, young women. That tells you that in the classroom there used to be women as well, because the story tells Zuhri would discuss all those issues with all the men and also with all the women. That's not only what Zuhri does. Then after, Zuhri would go to the houses of companions and make the men there and also meet the women as well. Old women, young women. The story says even Zuhri used to make effort to meet Rabbatul Khudur. Many of you don't know this term. Rabbatul Khudur. Rabbatul Khudur is a term used for those young girls who are about to get married. Arab culture has been when a girl is about to get married and their engagement has been done, her engagement, then they keep her hiding somewhere in the house. Nobody can see, and they adorn her, beautify, they take time. So girls like that who are Rabbatul Khudur, people are not allowed to meet them and see them. But Zohri used to manage to reach even to those girls, go there and discuss with them. So, some people manage, but most people, they are not actually, they don't have this ability to enter inside the houses and meet the men and women. So that actually my point is that if you analyze the stories properly, you will have this conclusion that the number of the men and women, learned men and women, was nearly the same in the society. The number that we have discovered, known about the women is no doubt certainly less compared to the men. In our time, we live, Muslims live all over the world. Whenever I mention these stories, people ask me very often this question: how women used to learn, where they used to go, because assumption actually in India, Pakistan, and Middle East is women are not allowed to enter to the mosque. Women can't come to a madrasa. As everybody knows, I'm from Nadatul Ulama. In Nadatul Ulama, I never have seen any woman studying, no female teacher, no female student. I have been to Deoband. Deoband has no female students. Saharapur. Go to any madrasa in India, the famous. None of them have got any female students. Go to Pakistan, same story. All these Darul, none of them have got women. They don't study there. Another ulama, until now, they don't, no women study. Same masjids. Women are not allowed to enter to the masjid. I have written such a big book. People in my village, they rebuilt the Jami Masjid. I also supported them. So I was thinking that I have been supporting the women all over the world. To at least in my village, I should make this Jami Masjid in a way that women also can come and pray there. Because in my village also, women don't pray, don't come to the masjid. So I discussed with the people. They say, yeah, we're going to listen to you. If you ask, we do. But truth really is, all the people around us, they will criticize us. Nobody's going to accept. It will be such a bad thing. So don't do this. So you see, even now in my village, there are 6, 7 masjids, but women are not allowed to enter into any of those mosques. They don't come there for any prayer. They don't come for even sermon. If there is any sermon preaching, women could be, there could be arrangements somewhere in houses, but they are not allowed to enter inside the masjid. So people ask me all the time that whenever you talk about the women, they study, they learn, they teach. So what was the venue? Where did they do this? This studying and teaching and learning, where they did? So I said to the people, they did exactly in the same place where the men did. Every single mosque in Muslim world where men used to study, women also used to study. Every single mosque of Muslim world where men used to teach, women also used to teach. Every single madrasa and college where men used to learn, women also used to learn and study. And it is something, it is not just I say and you believe. That how I know this and how I'm so certain and how I'm really, not scared that anybody can challenge me. There's so many others. I've been teaching this information for more than 20 years. And I'm, I have full confidence. Nobody can challenge me. I remember once I gave a talk in one of the city in England where the women are not allowed to come to the mosque. And I gave the talk in the masjid. Not to talk, we taught the whole day. And I mentioned that women used to come to the mosque and all these things about women coming to the mosque. After my talk, the Imam came to me and asked me to follow him. So I followed him. He said to me, teach whatever you like, but don't teach that women can come to the mosque. So I said, why? I'm an alim, you an alim. I've got all these references. Can't you check? He said, no, you may be right, but we don't allow the women to come to the mosque. In another city, Leicester, some ulama approached to me and they said, you have written this book but it is going to change everything. Not right. So I said to them, but you are alim. I've got every reference. If you find any problem, any mistake in my reference, tell me so I can correct it. They said, no, there's no problem you're referencing, but we don't want, our culture to change. So whenever I say that women used to be in every mosque and madrasa, it's not something I'm making up, especially when I know really that everybody will challenge me, because all over the world, ulama don't allow, most ulama don't allow. Now many people started accepting this, but in the past did not allow. The simple matter will be people can ask me my reference. So how I can say something if I don't have a reference? So I have got not one or two references, hundreds of the references. Nobody can doubt really. And references, how I found the references, one good tradition has been Islam. Very good tradition, which you don't have in any other religion. One good tradition has been from very early that whenever they used to teach hadith, especially hadith, not every book, whenever they used to teach hadith, they used to record that the venue where the teaching happening, who is the teacher, what is the time, what is the book being taught, and who are the audience. And they would write all these details at the end of the book. Any manuscript you go in Muslim world of hadith manuscript, at the end of the book or sometimes on the margins, you find this information. That is called Sama document. Sama document means where it is recorded that who is teaching, who are audience, what is being taught, what is the venue, and what the date. Every single thing very clearly. Some of them actually have got information which is amazing. One of the great book of hadith is As-Sunan al-Kubra al-Bayhaqi. In that one, the Sama is very, very big. In that one, even the person who's writing all the details, he writes that when the hadith was being taught, somebody among the audience whose name is so and so, he was sleeping. So even when he was sleeping, that recorded. He also said that this lady, she came to the class with her young child, and the child started crying. So she took him outside the classroom. So she missed from this hadith to this hadith. Even these small details, they have preserved. So nothing is missing. So on the basis of those information, and also, another tradition has been Islamism, especially in hadith, that whenever you study, you write the names of your teachers and the details of the books and hadith that you study with him, that you write. That called Thabat, Mashayikha, Mu'jam. I myself, I'm writing my book and my teachers, whatever I study with them, it's now 7 volumes. Inshallah, this year I'm going to publish. All my teachers, what I studied with them, what I learned from them, all the details. So that has been a tradition. In those books, people write if they study with a woman, where they studied. So all the details are there. And when you look in the details, you'll be amazed really. So early in Islam, the women used to teach in all these centers of learning. In all these madrasa means big colleges. They're not small. Big colleges, that was the college. Big colleges, big masjid, they used to teach there. And I start with you, with the most important mosques. The most important mosques, masjids in Islam are, the Masjid al-Haram in Makkah al-Mukarramah, the mosque of the Prophet in Medina, and the Al-Masjid al-Aqsa in Jerusalem. These are 3 holiest sites in Islam. In all these 3 mosques, women have been teaching, not learning, teaching. So in Makkah al-Mukarramah, the Kaaba, nobody can go inside the Kaaba, but attached to Kaaba is Hatim. Hatim is also like Kaaba. Inside the Hatim, I found 3 or more women who have been teaching there. Inside the Hatim, she's teaching there, and people who are learning from her, they are not common people. They are learned ulama, fuqaha, qudat, judges. They are the one who learning. So if it has been something wrong, they would note. They would say, no, you are not allowed to teach here. You are a woman. She's teaching there, and the people who are learning from her, they are good ulama. So, to these, I mentioned in the Kaaba, these women have been learning. Many of somebody asking me, give me the names. I've got actually all these names here. Some of them I heard some, maybe some of are not there. This book, which is a 43 volumes, then I wrote an introduction in one volume in Arabic language, nearly 700-800 pages. And that introduction has been summarized in English, and it's called Al-Muhaddithat. Al-Muhaddithat, Women Scholars of Islam. You easily can find the book in online and purchase it. All the names are there, very detailed, date, references, everything. So if sometime you miss the names, you can find. So inshallah, I'll give it some names anyway. Now we move to Al-Madinah Al-Munawwara. Al-Madinah Al-Munawwara, I also, the many women who have been teaching inside the mosque of the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. One description I found very interesting is by somebody whose name is Ibn Rushd As-Sabti. Ibn Rushd As-Sabti, a great scholar who comes from Morocco, Sabta, from Morocco. He has written his travelogue, that how he came to Madinah Munawwara. In those days, one of the lady who was famous to teach Sahih Bukhari, her name was Fatima Al-Batayahiyya. If you want to write the name, Fatima Al-Batayahiyya. She died in the year 711 of Hijrah. 711 of Hijrah. Basically, she's senior to Ibn Taymiyyah, Imam Dhabi. She like their teacher, basically. They studied with her. So her name is Fatima Al-Batayahiyya. Her isnad for the Bukhari and other books of the Hadith was very high. So what high means, maybe I'll explain later on, inshallah. So she was very much respected. She was from Syria. Not everybody can go to Syria. So one tradition has been Islam that when good teachers, they come for Hajj or Umrah, so then the people use that time and study with them because they can't travel to their home city. So she came to for Hajj and she was in Medina. Ibn Rushd said, when I came to Medina, I found out that Fatima al-Batayahiyya, she is teaching in the mosque of the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. So I was very much, happy to find this because, people knew her that she's so great. So he said, when I came to the mosque of the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, I saw Fatima teaching next to the grave of the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. Now actually nobody is allowed to go and teach next to the grave of the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. But in those days, they're not such a big crowd. So scholars used to sit there and teach from there. So she was teaching, sitting next to the grave of the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. And then he said she was not sitting, on the feet of the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. That actually also big honor. She was sitting opposite of the head of the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. She is sitting there. And whenever she, felt tired, she would lean on the wall of the grave. And at the end of the class, she would write ijaza for everybody with her own hand. So that is the mosque of the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. There are many women who have been teaching and sitting in the most important place of the mosque of the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, sitting and teaching there. Now we come to Jerusalem, Al-Masjid Aqsa. You must be knowing a lady. Her name is Darda. Darda, rahimahullah ta'ala. She is from the first century of Hijrah. She's Tabi'iyya. So her husband was a Sahabi. Her husband is Abu Darda. He was a teacher of Syria and Jerusalem. And he married this lady, Darda, who was learned and faqih. And she is really expert of the hadith and the fiqh. Her hadith are in all the books. Bukhari, Muslim, Tirmidhi, Nasai, Ibn Majah. Every book you can imagine, she has got hadith. And Imam Bukhari, rahimahullah ta'ala, calls her faqih. In one place of the Sahih Bukhari, because there has been difference of the opinion among the jurists where women do the prayers. Should women pray like the men, or they differ in the prayer from the men? So Imam Abu Hanifa, rahimahullah ta'ala, and some other jurists, they say women pray like the men except in few things. In few things they differ from the men. One is raising the hand. Men raise their hand to their ear. Women used to the shoulder, raised to the shoulder. Men put their hands under the navel and women put on the chest. And the third thing is in sajda and sitting. The women sit differently from the men, or do sajda differently from the men. So this is opinion who? Imam Abu Hanifa rahimahullah ta'ala. Imam Bukhari's opinion is that women do all the things same like men. There's no difference in prayer between men and women. So Imam Bukhari has got chapter heading where he wants to emphasize that women sit in the prayer like the men. And then he quotes Darda, that Darda used to sit in her prayer like the men. And then Imam Bukhari said, وَكَانَتْ فَقِيهَةً, and she was a jurist. She was a faqihah. So you see, she's a great, not she's someone, her name is mentioned in the most important book of Islam after the Quran. And not mentioned as a common lady, as a faqih, as a jurist, someone who gives fatwa, someone whose example can be followed. That Imam Bukhari's argument is that women are allowed to sit in the prayer like the men because Darda used to sit in the prayer like the men. So that was the argument is. This Darda, great woman of Islam, really. Her biographies are amazing. She used to teach 6 months in the great mosque of Damascus, and 6 months in Jerusalem, Al-Masjid Al-Aqsa. 6 months here, 6 months there. She used to teach all the year. That's how her teaching was. And in her classes, big learned people used to attend her class. One of them actually is even the Khalifa. Khalifa is who? Abdul Malik ibn Marwan. Abdul Malik Marwan is a big man. He is the one who started Muslim dinar and dirham. He was a learned man. In Medina, people say the most important tabi'i, Sa'id al-Musayyab. Abdul Malik Marwan was his colleague, classmate. They used to study together. And he was so learned. There is a story that last Mufti of Medina was Abdullah ibn Umar anhuma. When he was dying, Abdullah ibn Umar is son of Umar Khattab. So he died in the year 74 of Hijrah. He's the last great Mufti of city of Medina. When he was, because he is after Aisha, after Abu Huraira. So Abu Huraira and Aisha, they are greatest Mufti of Medina. They died, then Abdullah ibn Umar remained alone for so many years, and he died in the year 74 of Hijrah. When Abdullah ibn Umar was dying, people came to Abdullah ibn Umar and said to him, Ya ma'ashra ashyakh Qurayshin, yushiku an tafnadu, faman nas'alu ba'dakum. O old people of Quraysh, soon you're going to die. Finish. So who after you, who are we going to ask? Ibn Umar said, Inna li Marwana ibnan faqihan fas'aluhu. Marwan has got a son who's a faqih jurist, ask him. So he's Abdul Malik Marwan. He's a great jurist. So he used to attend the class of Darda rahimahullah ta'ala. And the historians say that he used to sit in her class, and when the time for the prayer comes, then Abdul Malik Marwan would hold her hand, take her to the rows of the women, and then he moves forward to lead the prayer. That's how he used to serve his teacher. In the same city of Jerusalem, we have got another teacher, Sayyida al-Maraniya. She's from Damascus. When she came to Al-Masjid Al-Aqsa, huge crowd came to study with her hadith. And as I mentioned, people get the names at the end of the book, to Sama'a. So I look in the document of the Sama'a when she came and was teaching in Al-Masjid Al-Aqsa. The names of the number of the people who attended her class, I counted them one by one. It is 396 people. 396 people in the class of one single lady. And most who attending the class, they are men, they are not women. There are some women as well, but most of them are men in the masjid, in the Al-Masjid Al-Aqsa. 396. And the person who records the name, then he said, there are many more. I was unable to write their names. He only was able to write names of 396 people. So that actually you can see in all the time in the history of Islam, narrating big hadith. Everybody knows hadith, this big hadith about Dajjal, when he is going to come, and about a lady and all these things. It all has come from a woman, single lady. Very long hadith. Hadith of Aisha, there are many, sometimes many pages, by her memory. And people who narrate from her, all the men, so many men, they narrate from her. Amazing memory, they memorize things, they teach, and they do this for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You don't find the history of women that take money for teaching. Most men, when they used to teach, they used to take money, except one or two women. Most women used to teach just for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's why one thing amazing in the history of the women is though there have been so many thousands of women teaching hadith. If you study the hadith, you will find there are many, many hadith. They are called al-mawdu'at. Mawdu'at means fabricated. They just lie. They invented. They are not true hadith. Many, many. Who made them? Who invented the hadith? Who fabricated the hadith? All the fabricators are men. Imam Zahabi, who is the great historian and expert of the narrators, he said, we don't know any single lady who fabricated any hadith in the hadith. No single lady. All the people who have been actually fabricating, they're women. They're men. None of them are women. So this is a big thing. That is thousands of the women, and none of them ever lied in the hadith. So now all those lies that exist in the hadith, they all coming from the men. Actually, we should be grateful for them. But anyway, so these women, they have been active, they traveling, learning, and memorizing, teaching, making every effort, for the hadith. I'll tell you a few stories that will explain to you that how much effort they have made. One of the women who became famous in the hadith in the 5th century of Hijrah, her name is Karima al-Marwaziyya. Karima al-Marwaziyya. She died in the year 463 or something like that, 463 or 464 of Hijrah. Karima al-Marwaziyya. She was from Marw, traveled in Muslim world in different places until she settled in Makkah al-Mukarramah. She settled there. And she was the most expert narrator of the Sahih Bukhari. As you people know, that the most important book in Islam after the Quran is Sahih al-Bukhari. Sahih Bukhari has been narrated by the narrators. Sometimes there are differences. Sometimes there could be some mistakes in narrating. If you ask people who are expert of the hadith, which copy of Sahih Bukhari is the most sound one? Most sound copy of Sahih Bukhari. That is a copy of a lady, Karima al-Marwaziyya. Among all the narrators of Sahih Bukhari from the beginning until our time, the best person who narrated Sahih Bukhari and preserved well is the lady, Karima al-Marwaziyya. You see, we should be grateful to the women. And how she was so good, because her way was, her students say, that whenever we used to come to Karima al-Marwaziyya to study, she would ask us to copy from her copy. If you buy Sahih Bukhari from the shop, she will not allow. Her condition was, first you have to copy from her own copy. Then you compare with her. If she approves that your copy is exactly like her copy, then she will allow you to read with her. That's how she managed to transmit a sound version of Sahih Bukhari. Now in this whole Muslim world, the most sound copy of Sahih Bukhari is copy of Karima al-Marwaziyya. Ibn Hajar al-Asqalani, all the people who wrote commentary, they rely on her copy. And I myself teach hadith, so I know really that how accurate her version of Sahih Bukhari is. So this is how it has been. Similarly, there are many, many great texts of hadith. They only came to be known in the world because of the women narrators. One of the lady, her name is Fatima bint Sa'ad al-Khair. Fatima bint Sa'ad al-Khair. She died in the year 600 of Hijrah. Her father is Sa'ad al-Khair from Spain. He was a muhaddith, but also he was a trader. Yeah, somebody asked me that give me the name of the teacher who taught in Hatim. Actually, there are 3 women, so I don't actually have it in my mind. But if you just, look in my book, this Muqaddimah, introduction, all the names are there. The title is the women who've been teaching in the, or maybe later on when I finish, I find the names and I can send by WhatsApp to Professor Siddiqui Sahab. You can get from him, inshallah. So the names are there. Her name is, the 3 women are more than 3 women. I got in my book, they're used to teach in Hatim. So I'm coming to Fatima bint Sa'ad al-Khair. Her father, Sa'ad al-Khair, originally from Spain, but he was expert of hadith and also a trader. So he used to travel. he used to do business Spain to China, all the world. She was born in China. When he was in China, that's when she was born. And when she became 4-year-old, Muhaddithin's way is when child becomes 4-year-old, then you can bring him or bring her to the classroom and he can hear the words of teachers. That hearing can be accepted to transmit the knowledge. Will not understand anything, but at least hearing can happen. That time, one of the great lady expert of the hadith was a lady. Her name was Fatima al-Juzdaniya. Juzdan is a small town. Juzdan is a small town in near Isfahan. Fatima al-Juzdaniya. So Fatima bint Sa'd al-Khair, her father took her to Fatima al-Juzdaniya so she can attend her class. Fatima al-Juzdaniya was well known to teach many books of hadith, especially one book. She became very famous. The name of the book is Al-Mu'jam al-Kabir of Tabarani, Imam Tabarani. That al-Kabir is now printed in 25 volumes. 25 volumes. Fatima al-Juzdani used to teach. This Fatima bint Sa'd al-Khair, when she was 4-year-old, she heard the whole Mu'jam al-Kabir and other books of the hadith from Fatima al-Juzdaniya. Then she left. Then when she was older, 12-year-old, then again she came, studied with her. Then she became older to understand everything. She came again. 3 times she has been learning from this Fatima al-Juzdaniya, the books of the hadith. Fatima bint Sa'd al-Khair became very famous, learned woman, traveled actually Baghdad, Damascus, Haramain, Egypt. She got married with a minister in Abbasid Empire. So she became very rich. And then her husband took her and they settled in Egypt. People of the hadith say that hadith science was dying in Egypt until Fatima bint Sa'd al-Khair came. When she came, she is the one who made this science renewed there. So now these books of hadith really, like Mu'jam al-Kabir al-Tabarani, Saghir, and so many other books, they only came to the world through these ladies. And if you want to know this thing, just simple thing you do. Buy a copy of, or go to a library, find out Mu'jam al-Kabir al-Tabarani or some of these books of hadith and look first page, you'll find the names of these ladies that we got this book from this lady. And in Islam, there is honesty. Whenever people learn from a lady, they mention her name. So her name will be there. That's how I got the name. Otherwise, how I could know anything? I only got the names from these books, from manuscripts, from printed books. The names are there. The many books in Islam, they have been transmitted only by these ladies, and their names are there. Even books of hadith really in the world, they are transmitted by these ladies. Some of them actually, even the number is very high. One of the ladies, her name is Zainab al-Maqdisiyya. Zainab al-Maqdisiyya. She died in the year 740 of Hijrah. 740. Hafiz ibn Hajar al-Asqalani, the one who wrote commentary on Sahih Bukhari, he narrates Sunan of Abu Dawud from someone from Zainab al-Maqdisiyya. Zainab al-Maqdisiyya is a big lady from a noble family of Damascus. People like Imam Zahabi and all the great muhaddithin, they have studied with her. They learned from her. She used to teach from morning until the evening. She never got married. Maybe she wanted to sacrifice her life for the sake of hadith, but anyway, she never got married. So she used to teach from morning until evening. And in her house, in all the masjid of Damascus, madrasas there, people used to learn from her. And if you read all the books she narrated, you can find at the end of the book the place where she taught. Sometime her house, sometime al-Jami' al-Muzaffari, sometime Jami' Banu Umayyah, sometime Madrasa Umariya. These are the places where she used to teach. Madrasa Umariya was the biggest college of hadith in Syria. She used to teach there. Al-Jami' al-Muzaffari is one of the big center of hadith learning in Syria, and also Jami' Banu Umayyah. Sometimes she used to teach. She was a very rich woman from a rich family. So she used to have a house outside Damascus where she used to spend time in the summer. In the summer, she used to go there. So sometime in the books of hadith said that we learn this book from Zainab in her house outside Damascus, where she was for retreat. Even there, people used to follow her and learn from her. Her student Imam Zahabi said, وَكَانَتْ صَبُورَةً عَلَى التَّسْمِيعِ. She was a very patient lady when people used to come to learn from her. So I was thinking really, why he's emphasizing her patience, her sabr. So then I thought there's good reason. Because every day to her house, 10, 20, 30, 40 people come and learn, study. They use her bathroom, her toilets. They want water. Maybe they also take her food. Sometimes they maybe make place dirty, unclean. All is happening in her house. She can't do this unless she's a patient. So that was the teacher says she was so patient. The reason I mention her name is that one important thing that the Habib said in her biography is that the books of the Hadith that Zainab had been teaching, they were load of a camel. How many books? Load of a camel. And then I looked to find out the names of those books that she had been teaching. So I found nearly 400 titles. How many? 400 titles that she had been teaching. We don't teach so many books. These ladies really, how much time they spent, teaching everywhere. In all these madrasas and all these masjids. I mentioned you 2-3 stories of some of these women who studied taught in big madrasas. One of the important center for learning of hadith in Syria is Jami Banu Umayyah, and there's a dome. It's called Qubbatul Nasr. Qubbatul Nasr. The tradition is that the most important muhaddith at the time, expert of the hadith, he would sit underneath of the Qubbatul Nasr and teach from there. So when I look in the list of the people who have been teaching, they must be the best people in hadith. So I found one lady's name. Her name is Aisha al-Maqdisiyya. She was appointed as the teacher of Sahih Bukhari, other books, to teach in this Jami Banu Umayyah. And people used to learn from her. Ibn Hajar Asqalani came all the way from Egypt and studied with her nearly 70 books of hadith. So she's teaching where? She's teaching in the Jami Banu Umayyah, in the same place where all the big muhaddithin used to teach. And the people who study with her, they are maybe women as well, but most learned men. Ibn Hajar Asqalani, they don't hide her name. They mention her name. Ibn Hajar Asqalani says, I studied with her 70 books, 70 titles, not 1 or 2 books, 70 books. He mentioned all of them by name. These are the books I studied with her. Just think really. Then another woman, her name is Fatima bint al-Munajja al-Tanukhiyya. Again from Syria. She had a very high sanad, and there was nobody equal to her in Egypt. Then the rulers of Egypt, they wrote a letter to her asking her if she can come to Egypt and teach there. Then she came to Egypt and taught in every palace of the kings and ministers, and also all the madrasas and the masjids. And she had her own copy of Sahih Bukhari, which is still preserved in one of the libraries of Turkey. I got a copy of the first page in my book. You can see there. This is a thing that these every center, everywhere they have been teaching. And lastly, I want to mention one more story, and then you can have questions, inshallah. The reason I mention this story is because sometimes people say maybe these women are narrators, they teach hadith, but not necessarily they're faqih. This is not right actually. I've made a chapter in my book, all the women who used to give fatwa and teach fiqh, the huge number. One of them is, I mention her name, there's a famous book in Hanafi Madhab that is called Tuhfatul Fuqaha. Tuhfatul Fuqaha, written by Alauddin as-Samarqandi from Samarkand, who died in the 6th century of Hijrah. He has got a daughter, Fatima bint Alauddin as-Samarqandiyya. Fatima learned fiqh from her father. She even memorized the book of her father. She knew the book by heart. And she was expert of the fiqh. Everybody mentioned that she was great faqihah. Her father has got a student whose name was Kasani, Allama Kasani. Kasani learned from Alauddin Samarkandi, and after finishing the study, he asked his teacher if he can marry his daughter, Fatima. The teacher said, no, my daughter is more learned than you. You only can marry her if I test you and you pass the test. And your test is that you write a commentary on my book. So then Kasani wrote commentary on the book Tuhfat al-Fuqaha in many, many volumes. And when the teacher saw the book, he was happy and married her. The people say in the history that شرح تحفته وتزوج بنته. He wrote commentary on his Tuhfat al-Fuqaha and got married with his daughter. This commentary, which came just to marry her, nothing else. People of the Hanafi madhab say, if you ask Hanafi people which one is the best book in Hanafi madhab, one of the great teachers of India, Maulana Rashid Ahmad Gangohi, he used to say the best book in Hanafi madhab is Badai al-Sanai, this commentary, Badai al-Sanai by Kasani. The best book in Hanafi madhab was written why? To marry this woman. Now Hanafi people are the one who hate women the most. Women are not allowed to do this, women are not allowed to do this. And the best book came in Hanafi madhab just to get married with this lady. He was so learned. And then the historians say, later on, Kasani was appointed a teacher in the big college of Halab, Aleppo. So Kasani came there with his wife. She was learned as well. She's teaching and she's doing so many things. The students of Kasani, they write Ibn Adim al-Halabi and others, that sometimes the classroom, Kasani would explain something and we ask question, he does not know the answer. So Kasani would say to us, okay, wait a little bit. And then he would go and come back with the answer. Later on, we found out, actually, he goes to his wife, ask her and bring the answer. So the man who wrote the best book in Hanafi madhab, his wife knew the fiqh more than him. And actually, there are many, many of those people in my book where the women were more learned than their husbands. And the husband used to learn from them, study with them. So this is really a rich history. Thousands of the women. I remember when I was doing the work in Oxford, to one of the Orientalists in Oxford, he was my colleague, he said to me that another expert of the great Orientalist of Oxford has written a book. So he got me photocopy of a page. In that one he writes, if Muslims can give us name of 5 women who are learned, we'll accept that. That in Islam also there have been learned, only 5 names. And he said to me, now you've got so many thousands of names. Nobody can deny. If you have got 10 names, 20 names, people could have doubt. But thousands of the names, who is going to doubt that? So that I think really. And sometimes people ask me that, it is such a big name. I say, no, it is the effort of only one person, me. And I don't know all Muslim languages. So there are many, many, biographies of the women in African languages, Indonesia, Malaysia, Central Asian language. I don't know those languages. In Sri Lanka, and also Arabic. I did not study all Arabic sources. I got some Arabic sources, Persian sources, Urdu. These are languages I know. But all the things that are written in other languages, I don't know. So what I wrote in my book is a very small portion. If people after that start more study, more research, they will get more and more names. I myself keep getting more names. So in my book, there are nearly 10,000 women, but the number is much, much higher. So summary of the matter really is that, in our history, but modern time, Muslim women are the one who are most backward. We don't, encourage them. Time has come. We should encourage them, support them, open the doors of masjids, madrasat, colleges for them, provide facilities for them to study hadith, tafsir, fiqh. You will see really, they will excel the men. And then actually in the houses you will have good teachers. Imagine if the women are learned, how they will raise the children. Imam Bukhari basically was taught because his mother was so interested in learning. All these imams, I said to the people, Abu Hanifa, Malik, Shafi'i, Hanbal, and Bukhari. These 5 people, none of them are raised by their fathers. All 5 are raised by their mothers. The women don't, if they did not have so much interest, how they could have raised all these big people in Islam. So, in India, everybody knows Nizamuddin Awliya. The biggest saint of India is Shaykh Nizamuddin Awliya. He was orphan. His father died. His mother used to work in the house, sewing clothes, something, and used to bring some money. Nizam al-Awliya writes that sometime my mother would have no food. So she would say to me, "Oh my son, today we are guests of Allah." That means no food, sleep without food. And sometimes she would have food. But when she used to have, so often food, so sometimes I would say to my mom, "Oh my mom, when are we going to be guests of Allah again?" I love that sentence so much to see how she raised him. Nobody likes to be hungry, but she made hunger such a good thing for her son by saying that, we are guests of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is Shaykh Nadam Awliya, the biggest saint of India. So it's a mother. She was so pious, so knowledgeable, so devout, that how she was able to raise. That's what we need really is. If we really want to reform Muslim societies, bring the people back to their foundations, the way that men and women work together, inshallah. If you have any question, please ask.
Jazakallah khairan, and may Allah bless you for a wonderful talk, sharing from the vast knowledge that you have in this very important area. So as I requested all of you that if you want to ask a question, please raise your hand through the Zoom panel at the bottom of your screen. And I have one name here, Sister Jinan Yusuf. I will request that you please also let us know from where are you participating. And before asking question, please unmute your mic. Sister.
Yeah, Jazakum Allah khairan. I'm Jinan Yusuf and I'm in Oxford in the UK actually. Jazakum Allah khairan, Sheikh Akram. I have a question. Actually, there are two related questions. So the first one is about the concept of modesty. It seems that nowadays we have a much more restrictive concept of modesty, and this is what people use to prevent women from learning or teaching, to say or mentioning their names, to say that it's not modest. And because it's such an intrinsic part of our religion that modesty is, al-haya is something that's very, it's the characteristic of our religion, we seem to, because our interpretation is so strict, we use this to prevent women from doing all the things that they're supposed to. So how can we change this understanding, and especially when it's something that's become so ingrained in certain cultures? Jazakumullah khairan.
Sister Jinan, mashallah, she is from Emirate, from Dubai. She's an Arab lady, and she did her PhD from England, and she is the one who wrote, actually, this book is now very famous, on the names of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in English. So her book is quite well known, alhamdulillah. So this is a very good question, really, that how people have changed the meaning of modesty. If you read the biography of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, you can see that in his time, the women do everything that men used to do, especially, fighting in the war. Tell me really, is fighting in the war is easy? So many women in his time, they attended the battlefield fighting. And when you fight the men, they can hit you anywhere. And many of these women who used to participate in the war, they used to wear men's clothes. If a woman now, lady, wears men's clothes, people will say it's not modesty. This Sahabiyat, companions the Prophet ﷺ, in his time and also later on, they used to wear men's clothes in the battlefield and nobody has problem. I have a story in the time of Umar anhu, one of the famous battle of Yarmouk, there are nearly 35 ladies, they were fighting. One of them was Khawla bint al-Azwar, and she was fighting very bravely. Khalid ibn Walid was there. He asked one of his companions, who is this man fighting so bravely and with bravery and all that? The people said to him, this is not a man, she's a woman in men's clothes. So if wearing men's clothes was against modesty, they should be angry. But no, because they know it is a battlefield. So so the women used to be there sometime, they did not have all these enough clothes that we think, but they used to go everywhere. They used to do farming. In hadith you find women are doing really farming. They are in the field working. They are horse riding. They do riding a horse is not easy. Some Muslim countries, they used to not allow women even driving the car, which actually is so easy. But these women, Arab ladies, in the time of the Prophet ﷺ, they used to do horse riding. If the horse riding is not against modesty, what else? They're doing a business. They used to have shops in Medina. All those things. That, we have to study these things. That you can certainly they were pious ladies. Islam does not compromise on the piety. Piety must be there. People's honor is very important. But piety does not mean that you stop people from doing any good things. If they want to study, if they want to learn, if they want to do business, trade, anything, fighting, a war, going to the Aisha anha, she actually led the war, and Anas said that in Battle of Uhud, Aisha and his mother, they used to give water to the injured people, and when they're taking the water, they're running. Aisha and Anas said, I could see Aisha the shins when she's running. So when she's running, she can't run in jilbab, so she had to lift her trouser. When she's lifting her trouser, her shins could be uncovered. That is mentioned in the hadith. He could see. If this was against modesty, why the Prophet would allow the women to come to battlefield and give water to the people, running like that? But they should do. So anything that you can imagine really, need in the society, what men can do, women also used to do. So we don't say that they had any problem with taqwa or piety. Piety was there, but at the same time they knew really the piety should not stop them from doing any good. So this concept of modesty that we have in our time, it is a corrupt concept. It actually has come from, I don't know where it come from. It was not there. Imagine in this religion, women do tawaf. Is there any mixing in the world worse than tawaf? When women do tawaf, they are pushed by men. There's no mixing in the world worse than tawaf. If this religion allows tawaf, why not anything else? Another question.
So you can raise your hand or you can write your questions in the chat box. Here, there are two short questions from Dr. Aslam Abdullah. He is asking, where can we get 40 volumes of your work? Is there a PDF available? And his second question is, where did we go wrong?
Yeah, the book is published, the 43 volumes, not 43 volumes, published from Darul Minhaj, Dar al-Minhaj in Jeddah. So if people want to buy, they can purchase from Jeddah and from their website, Darul Minhaj. Some copies I have got also in my house. If people want to purchase, they can, write to me through Siddiqui sir, so we can help them. But if you want to go directly to the publisher, so that is Darul Minhaj, Dar al-Minhaj in Jeddah. Well, how it went wrong, that's actually a much more complicated story. Simple matter is in my analysis, when I look information, where it came that when people started stopping the women from coming to the classroom, I realized whenever there are hadith of the Prophet, emphasis more on hadith, women are encouraged to learn and study. Whenever there are more emphasis on the philosophy, then women are started, because philosophers, they used to believe that women are inferior to the men. They are not meant to learn. That's why in the history of Greek philosophy, you never find any single woman. Aristotle, who is such a clever man, he gives an argument for women being inferior. One argument he uses is that women have got less teeth compared to the men. The historians of the philosophy, they say Aristotle actually had 2 wives. He could have counted their teeth. They have same teeth like men. So that's how they have been biased against the women. And that actually, came to also in Muslim philosophers. In my book, you find the women from Shia, from Khawari, from all sects, but you don't find any lady from philosophers. The philosophers did not allow the women to learn. They used to think that they are inferior. Even actually people like Imam Ghazali. Imam Ghazali has written a book, At-Tibr al-Masbuk fi Nasayih al-Muluk, where he advises the kings. So in that book, Imam Ghazali said that don't consult the women. Means don't take their advice. You only consult the men. Don't consult the women. If it happened to that you don't have any men and you have to only consult the women, then Ghazali said, if you happen to consult the women, then do opposite of what they say. If they advise something, just do opposite of that. And then he said, in sum, all the evil in the world, they are because of the women. This is the thinking that became deep in madrasat, because later on, madrasat curriculum were very much basically formed by Ghazali thinking. So people who are in madrasat, they are influenced by Imam Ghazali. So that how in madrasat, people became, very much negative about the women. So wherever philosophy was more strong in madrasat, women were not allowed, like Indian madrasat, fiqh and philosophy. But in those madrasat where there were more hadith, like Waliullah Dehlavi in India, his madrasa was more hadith madrasa. So he allowed women. So there are many women who are learned in India. They are from his family, and those who study with his students, they are there. But generally, that was the case. That is my thinking is that whenever philosophy became stronger, women became, women were oppressed more and more, and they were not allowed to learn.
Jazakallah khair. Good advice from Sister Janan. It's to everyone, so you can read. We should study how and when the concept of modesty changed. There is a question from Brother Malahat Quraishi. Thank you. This was a great lecture. The question I have is, which part of the Muslim history is religion impacted by cultural and female roles got faded away?
The thing really, culture always have been a problem. So many things that we see is Islamic, they're not really Islamic, it is the cultural, they came from customs of the people. But there are always reformers. The people used to reform the society. But I think somehow Indian subcontinent became more influenced by their own culture. And their things are much worse. Because I have been traveling to Muslim world. I spent time in Syria for my research. There actually I found that the women are in the masjid. They come to the masjid, they study there, they also attend the prayer there. I saw in Egypt, the women come to the masjid. In Haramain, Makkah and Medina, everybody sees the women are there. In Turkey, women come. So I don't understand why still in Indian subcontinent that women are not allowed. India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, maybe one or two masjid have started. So the power of the culture actually much more stronger in India than anywhere else. If I tell you the fatwas about women in India, you'll be shocked. Or look books of fatwa written in India at the end of 19th century and the beginning of 20th century. Big muftis, I don't want to mention the name. What they write about the women, it is so insulting. One of the fatwa is that don't teach women writing. Why actually the Prophet ﷺ, his wife knew how to write. Hafsa did not know how to write. Then the Prophet asked one of the lady, to teach Aisha, Hafsa, how to write. But Indian muftis say that don't teach women writing, because they learn writing, they will write letters to their lovers. So that's why people learn writing. Just think really how mind has been that, Deoband, such a big place. Qari Tayyab Sahib, who was a 50-year director of Deoband, his mother did not know reading and writing. People of his family told me. Deoband, which teaches all over the world, so many students all over the world. The director of Deoband, who was director for Deoband for more than 50 years. 50 years, his director of Deoband, his mother did not know reading and writing. And his mother herself was wife of another director. Qari Tayyab's father also was director of Deoband. The wife of a director of Deoband, daughter-in-law of Mohammad Qasim Nadwi, the founder of Deoband, mother of Qasim Maulana Qari Tayyab, but did not know reading and writing, because they did not think actually women deserve, women have right to read and write. So this how has been India so negative. And until now, when I go there and I teach, I can feel that many students they welcome, but still, madrasas and some people, they resist these ideas, they don't like.
I have Sister Dr. Nusba Parveen. Please go ahead. Unmute your mic. Yes.
Assalamu alaikum. I wanted to know, I mean, is this list only limited to Hadith scholars? So what about the contribution of women in other fields? And also I wanted to know, you didn't mention Rabia Basri. I mean, as we know, I mean, she was a teacher for both men and women, but was it, I mean, that she was not teaching Hadith or?
Who you said?
Rabia Basri. Rabia
Rabia
Basri.
Basri, yeah.
Rabia.
You know, the thing is, because I wrote a book about the hadith, so any woman who would know hadith qualified for my book. But there are those women who are in my book. There are also some of them are fiqh women, some are Sufi women, because they also knew hadith. To anybody who has any hadith knowledge, they're qualified for my book. So women are, you know, are expert in other fields. Somebody written a book on the women who are expert of tafsir. So people can do more research on different women. I just did on one part, women of the hadith. But certainly there are women who have been expert in the medicine. The good some good number of women in medicine, some actually even in astrology, some in philosophy, some in Arabic grammar, many women in poetry. So women actually are in all the field. Rabia Basariya, she is a really great woman, and or all these women, even Rabia Basari, they used to teach men and women both. The men used to learn from them, and women used to learn from them. Either, you know, women used to learn themselves from men and women. So similarly, they used to teach men and women both. Nobody stopped them from teaching men and women, or learning from men and women. They study with everybody. So Rabia Basri is, yeah, one of the important lady of Basra. She taught men and women both.
Thank you very much. And we are coming to conclude our program. May Allah reward you and bless you. And we are very grateful for your time. And we always witness in West, especially in US and Europe, how our Muslim youth are drifting away from Islam. One of the reasons is that we have ignored, I mean, even there are many women who are highly educated in the secular knowledge, but when they were at home, they were not given the proper Islamic knowledge. So the environment in the household is not that much Islamic, or the youth, they are unable to get convinced about the truth of Islam, and they are becoming atheist. So I hope that today's lecture will inspire all of us, and inshallah, if you can send me, for example, there was a question about the 3 women scholars who taught in Hatim, the names, then I can share with the person who has asked this question. And we hope that inshallah, we will be able to benefit from your scholarship in the future as well. And I request you to please make dua and conclude this session. Dr. Akram Nadwi.
Before making dua, somebody asked question, about women attending the prayer in the mosque. So, there is a book written, not a book actually, there's a one piece written by Ibn Hazm about the women attending the prayer in the mosque. That part I translated to English, and then I added many information. So it has been published now in a book in English, that women attending the prayer in the mosque. That book you can buy online, very small book, just few pages, 70 pages or 80 pages, maybe 100, less than 100 pages. That gives you all the arguments, evidence that how the Prophet encouraged the women to attend the prayers in the mosque, and how throughout the history the women have been attending the prayers in the mosque. And the book is based on the most sound information from the hadith. And also it mentions, the questions that raised by the people about women attend the prayers. So I answered those questions as well. So if people are interested to know more about that, they can just purchase that book, that Ibn Hazm, on women attending the prayer in the mosque.
Interestingly, a question came related to what you were just saying. How come the masjids in Makkah and Medina segregate the women in separate areas?
No segregation. What Islamic way is that Imam stands, then men stand, then women. So that should be there. So that how it is. But women should be in the same place, so they could be able to see the men. Because if they're not able to see, they will do mistakes. So they have to follow, they have to see the road ahead. That always have been tradition. That's what is written in the books of the fiqh. Abu Hanifa, Malik, everybody writes how women stand in the prayer. So in my book, this book, if people get it, they can find all the arguments, evidence from all the books of the fiqh and hadith, inshallah.
Also, we have recorded this session, and anybody who would like to receive, we convert it into YouTube and we post it on YouTube. You can write your email in the chat box, and inshallah, we are going to share with you the link for the YouTube, inshallah. So, Shaykh Akram, can you make dua, please?
اللهم صل على سيدنا مولانا محمد وعلى آله وبارك وسلم. ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار. اللهم إنا نسألك علما نافعا وعملا صالحا ورزقا حلالا واسعا وشفاء من كل داء. ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار. اللهم صل على سيدنا مولانا محمد وعلى آله وبارك وسلم برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين.
And after about a week or so, if you visit our website, www.wcmir.org, you will also find the recording of today's lecture, if you were unable to provide your email, inshallah. So with this, we conclude with thanks to all the participants, and Jazakallah khair, Shaykh Akram Nadwi. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.